bunch of characters. One of them looks like Freefall. And yeah, just weird, crazy, eclectic, very J. Scott at this time. I would really be into these characters coming back in some form or another. AKAPAD'S, hang out with me and welcome to the channel, my beautiful people. It's Wildstorm Wednesday, but we're going to be discussing Homage Studios, the prehistory of Wildstorm Productions, and one, you guys know the name's coming, Jim Lee. We got things to discuss. AKAPAD'S and my fellow Wildstormers, welcome back to the channel. Peter A DeLuca here, and also known throughout the Wildstorm universe as the Eclectic One. Yeah, we've been eclectic recently here, and the reason is because I literally had, with last week's video, a existential crisis, a meltdown, if you will, while reading the Cyberforce Wildcats Homage Studios company accessible wide crossover Killer Instinct. It was 4 issues, 2 issues of Wildcats, 2 issues of Cyberforce. I spent way too much time with that material. By the time I did another video, which featured Wildcats 5, a prologue issue to that crossover, I was just sick. I was like sick to my little tummy tum. I had to move on. I had to wash my palate. And during this, the reading, the research, the discovery, if you will, I realized a couple things, further things about Jim Lee's business practices. It's weird, AKAPAD'S. And I kind of remembered this, the Art of Wildstorm Studios. Nice prestige format. Great, like really nice. Good images, like all the things, like Jim Lee here rocking and rolling, drawing some Wildcats, some really good hotness in here, and it features all the talent from Jim Lee's side, Mark Silvestri's side, and at this time, Jim Lee just started scooping up and acquiring talent through the nationwide, worldwide Wildstorm Productions or Homage Studios talent search, where he acquired Alex Garner, J. Scott Campbell, brain fart there, and Brett Booth. Those 3 individuals still somewhat continued in the comic books today, to some capacity. I know you guys, well, J. Scott is, no, he just does covers and things. I'm talking about the guts of the book, right? Like, we want panels, we want storytelling, so we give it to Brett Booth. At least he is still slinging lead to tell stories, or I don't know, lack of a better term for that. And so during this, it was really just the idea that even in the Killer Instinct tour book, and I'll show it off to you guys, there's another founder of Homage Studios credited. In here, there's a little introduction by a guy I want, some paper bitch. I won't name his name. You know what? I'll name his name when we hit the drawing table, because I'm pretty sure that guy got me excommunicated from the one of the Facebook Wildstorm groups, whatever. Bitter former professionals that are no longer relevant, come at me, bro. And even in this description, this little intro for the Art of Wildstorm Studios, maybe not all the information, but potentially conflicting information, and it's just like another onion. Like, if we're really peeling an onion, it's another layer that we have to investigate, because even to this day, to right now, I'm just talking about if we were just reading the material as it rolled out, we would not know the founders of Homage Studios, and realistically, we still don't know the founders of Wildstorm Productions, because we know that there's some money, there's some business, and there's some financial management of individuals connected to all of this. Jim Lee seems to really have burned bridges, kicked people over cliffs, Spartan 300 style. I'm not like denouncing or kind of playing against that weird things don't happen in business and it's really hard to explain it or to reflect sometimes. But for some reason, Jim Lee's untouchable. Like, people really don't actively criticize him in any type of public forum or public display at all. It's effing weird. So I kind of want to delve into some of that while showing off what did the Wildstorm offices look like, how much space did they have, and holy crap, they literally had a lot of space. When I look at the floor plan in here, and I give them credit, they documented the floor plan. You can even see where some of the offices are. It's insane. It just seems like frivolous spending, and kind of like let the good times roll will never effing end. And all of this really stems from the success of X-Men #1. It echoed because we were at a peak period, but as soon as we started to get over that crest, and the industry started to not crash down, but it was a slow, gradual discovery of who the fans and who the audience really was. That's really what happened through the 90s. We had to work through or excommunicate a lot of the fandom that came in through investors or through the bubble, and just hoping and not knowing that a lot of these books at the time would just never be invaluable. Now to this day, a lot of those 90 books have had decent returns, and you could spend 20 years buying them in dollar bins, and you could have built boxes up of Spawn books, for example, and you could be selling them at a really good price right now. Now, it's not this Action Comics #1 type return, but then again, what really is? Jim Lee is a businessman, and in my view, he's a businessman first, comic book guy second. Tom McFarlane became a toy maker first, and everything else second. And Rob Liefeld, if you just want to go through the three-headed dragon when it comes to the Image Boys, Rob Liefeld sucks at business and kind of like sucks at comic book creation after a certain point. So let's get into the Art of Homage Studios and further dissect what the nature of Homage Studios was, opening up a bridge or like a gateway into further study of the people around Homage Studios, because right now I'm actively trying to get, I'm collecting my information. I don't know what movement this is, everyone. This is me collecting information, but we're going through interviews, we're going through documentation, and we're just trying to build a little bit of a dossier, if you will. I just love saying that word, dossier. Guys, I'm babbling, but we're getting there. Okay, you guys know what I'm saying. Let's hit that drawing table. AKAPAD'S, welcome to a shotgun blast. We're talking the Art of Homage Studios, but I want to make a note. So previously on Top Cow Tuesday, I went over Codename Strikeforce, issues 1 through 3. This is the B-side to the A-side. The A-side is Cyberforce. For Wildstorm, the A-side is Wildcats, Covert Action Teams, and the B-side is Stormwatch. Now, going into the modern day, it's actually flipped. Like, Stormwatch is the A-side, Wildcats is the B-side. Stormwatch never got a Saturday morning cartoon, a toy line, a video game, and a giant media push around a entire major network, right? But Stormwatch became the comic book of comic books. But we can't do that because we can't discuss Stormwatch right now, because we have to get into the Art of Homage Studios. And this is the map. Look how big Homage Studios was. And as we go through this book, they do a cool thing. They tell us who's in some of these offices. Like featuring J. Scott Campbell, Aaron Weisenfeld, Brandon Peterson, Ryan Benjamin, and Jim Lee. And here we go. They're in all of these offices. Some of it makes no sense, to be honest. The way how they group some of these offices together becomes a joke. But we get some nice detail here of what it was like during this time. What was it like for the people at Wildstorm? What was it like for the people at Top Cow? I think books like this are fantastic, but they are contradictory. And we get to that in our introduction. So let me get my Rubik's Cube real quick. I'm going to have to grab another book because, you know, you guys know we can't just do one book anymore. I'll be right back. All right, let's just say we're early Wildstormites. We're like all in on Homage Studios. And you're the type of person, you go down to your local bookstore and you buy these and like you read them, you know, because you're really into everything that the company's putting out. And myth building, lore building, you know, it goes both ways. It goes from within the characters and through the companies. This is a lesson we really learned through the Walt Disney Company. Pump the stock of your founders, pump up the company's story, make, you know, like there's no Hollywood movie that isn't successful that later you find out that every studio rejected. Anything for that matter, anything that becomes successful was rejected by everyone outside of the way that you found that work, meaning all but one said no. This is a part of like the modern day myth building when it comes to our connection to corporations and to companies. So we have the brief history of Homage Studios with Jeff Moriarty. Now, Jeff Moriarty, okay, is my real Moriarty. So I'm Sherlock Holmes. You and the AKAPAD army are Sherlock Holmes, and there's a true Moriarty. What am I talking about? Well, this guy, I was in this Wildstorm Facebook group, and this dude, he raised all these alarms through my videos because I was critical of Wildstorm. And he got the admin to reach out to me and says, if you're going to give us videos, I'm going to need to approve them. And I said, well, F you, no. So, but this guy, he wasn't even on my radar. He's only on my radar because in this Facebook group, I would make a post. I would say, hey guys, like I just reviewed a bunch of like Wildcats trading cards. Here's my video for Wildcats trading cards. And he would come in and say, I wrote the back of all of those cards. It's like, who cares about the descriptions of the trading cards? We're looking at the artwork. No one cares. And he's just one of those people that from past glory, he cannot let go. And this is the worst thing in the comic book industry because the veterans are, people want to say that the newer people are toxic. The veterans are the true toxicity of the comic book world. They're so poor and bitter, it's pathetic. Jeff Moriarty is one of those people. So he comes in and he basically, let's get to it. See, so he goes, to alleviate the boredom, high school friends Wells Portacio and Scott Williams started working together in a loft in Scott's condo. Soon Scott and Wells began to make a name for themselves, drawing such projects as Marvel's Strike Force, Moriarty, and The Punisher. On one job, Wells inked the work of new penciler named Jim Lee. Realizing the benefits of working with others, Jim soon moved from Berkeley to San Diego to join Scott and Wells in their studio. So when it comes to my 9-to-5 life, one of my mentors is an individual that moves like you wouldn't believe. And he did that earlier in his career, and he tells me these stories where he would like move from job to job every 3 months, and there was all these reasons for it. And I do feel like that's a mechanism for very successful people to where you have to be willing to get up and leave. A lot of times, I feel like even myself, I've been held back because I held myself back because I didn't want to move. And it's a tough thing to deal with. Some people are fantastic at it and they're able to take advantage of it. If I could go back in time, I would be a mover. I really would. This population explosion overflowed the loft in Scott's condo. So the artist packed up and moved to a one-bedroom apartment. Then, desperate Then a desperate call came from Marvel. An issue of the Uncanny X-Men was running late. Could these guys pencil ink in 14 days? Could they make one comic in 14 days? The three went to work. Each man played to his strengths, with Jim doing the layouts, Wells rendering, Scott inking, and Jim doing going back in to add effects and finishes. The book was done in just 9 days. Working together made them a powerful force, the three artists realized. Next to join was painter-colorist Joe Chiodo, who we absolutely love, by the way, guys. With Joe on board, the gang moved to a spacious 2-bedroom apartment, and with the first Homage Studios products hit the marketplace, prints of Cybernary and Blood and Iron. So here's the thing, guys, as I'm talking to you, here's that Cybernary print right here. And I found one. And here's a little tidbit from Jim Lee himself about this print. It's interesting because from early on, it was like, we have to sell our own thing. We have to get away from the clutches of other people's characters. Jim Lee, as much as they want to act like Jim Lee was resistant to join Image Comics, Jim Lee, from the very inception, from the very beginning, wanted to sell characters, characters that he could draw. And what's the best scenario for that is you own that character to draw, and you can do what you want with it. And the bigger platform you have, the better. This is really the definition of Homage Studios, Wildstorm Productions, Top Cow Productions. It's you're able to draw because you own it, not the other way around, because not every character guarantees financial freedom. Like, no one cares about Cybernary, but it's the spirit of it. In 1992, Mark Silvestri joined the Homage team. So those are our founders. So it's these guys. Jim Lee, Lee, Silvestri, Williams, Portacio. Well, again, let's get into our Wildstormers, the people that bought and read these, right? So let's say you went to the Killer Instinct tour, you buy the Killer Instinct tour, you have this, or vice versa, and you read this, and you're like, man, like, I love this company. Well, you get into the back of this, and things were done at the same time, right? Because we have Weapon Zero here, and then inside the Art of Homage Studios, we have, you guys guessed it, a Weapon Zero, like, first appearance. This is Weapon Zero's first story, which is actually a really good 3-issue story, by the way, guys. I recommend this just for that, and I also recommend this for the Jim Lee story, but we're not talking about that exactly. So you buy this, you go through it, you're like, man, like, Strike Force looks cool, Cyber Force, yeah, I love those guys. And then here we go. The founding members of Homage Studios, right? Jim Lee, Scott Williams, Wells Portacio. But there's no Mark Silvestri. And a lot of times there was like humor in these captions, like you see it here with Brett Booth and J. Scott Campbell. You kind of want to say in parentheses or something, or like an asterisk and say minus Mark Silvestri. I mean, Jim Lee and Mark Silvestri are superstars. They're superstars enough to where the two of them, as previously featured on this channel, by the way, guys, they show up in Newhart, the TV show, alongside Jack Kirby and the creator of Batman, Bob Kane. Yes, we don't do the Bill Finger thing, guys. We're Team Bob Kane. I just feel like that's a discrepancy in some way. And Jim Lee is in habit of rewriting history as he goes along because he's great at that myth building. But we get this amazing spread here, and we get so much information in the first 2 pages. Number one, Mark Silvestri, Wells Portacio talks about he wanted to learn computer coloring, and he kind of created a book for that. And these are his colors over Wetworks. Mark Silvestri makes a comment on Black Anvil of this is his commentary on the big guy on teams like Fiji here, right? And Sylvester wanted someone short, stout, and super wide, and that was a purposeful decision. I think that's great. And look, guys, I always said Team Codename Strike Force they just look good, dude. The colors work together, the palette works. They look like they're mercenaries. I know that's a tough thing to nail sometimes. This just works. So we get Scott Williams. We see some Scott Williams artwork here, and it's a little upsetting because you just want to say to yourself, like, why doesn't Scott Williams draw more? This is White Wolf, a Native American character. One banger, Wildcats illustration by Jim Lee, where Jim Lee basically says, I wanted to do less cross-hatching, make it a little bit more wide open, a little bit more animated, right? And I just wanted to draw it, but I love Voodoo's pose right here. And Jim Lee is, again, like, so good with posing characters. Because a lot of times when you do team shots, coming up with the right, like, angle, position, move, like, you know, kind of like rotating the figure, it gets a little bit tough when it comes from character to character because each one needs to be different. We get Joe Chiodo doing some pencils in here too. He has another piece coming up. And a banger wolf dude. Great rendering for the gun. Nice work on the smoke here. But look at his face. Look at his face. But I'd like to smoke. And we get Homage Stories. Captain Pyro and the West Coast Pirates. Urban Storm. Pencil and ink by Jim Lee. One of the few examples of that too during this time. And Weapon Zero, which we kind of already went through. So what's Captain Pyro? Look, J. Scott Campbell. How about this, dude? Like, Wildstorm might own a catalog of J. Scott Campbell characters, even to this day. These might be, you know, owned by DC Warner Discovery. Bunch of characters. One of them looks like Freefall. And, yeah, just weird, crazy, eclectic. Very J. Scott at this time. I would really be into these characters coming back in some form or another. I hate to say it, crowdfund this book. It will get made. But it's a 3-issue, 4-page intro. Well done. We get Urban Storm, but we get Pike here, and Jim Lee basically says this was the first villain I designed for Wildstorm. And you know, we had it, like, you know, we did it pretty well, but I just wanted to showcase it because this was, yeah, the first bad guy. And Pike is one. Look at that. I love his mask design. Really nice colors too. That Christmas green and that Christmas red. Really cool. But then, you know, Battalion here also has the same colors, and right, like Battalion. But Battalion later gets he gets all silver. They make him all silver. But yeah, we get this penciled and ink. This was a charity story that was to raise money for the LA riots, and Jim Lee does a little bit of a commentary on the riots. Pencils and inks in Jim Lee's way, and this is the stuff I love that Jim Lee does. Like, because you really see, like, the big chunky markers that he could be using to get to, like, dig in and get some of these line variations. But yeah, serviceable story, pretty good. Guys, Joe Mad is in the house, and his favorite character of Homage Studios is Velocity. And Velocity still to this day remains to be the favorite character. We get Weapon Zero, a long-running Joe Benitez book from Top Cow Productions that, guess what, is pretty effing decent, with Walter Simonson coming in to write some of this. How to Draw by Wells Portacio. You know, some decent stuff here. It's 50-50 on some of the advice here. The coloring really falls flat. You know, but we see kind of like the setup of coloring before it goes into the computer. So, swimsuits. Yeah, Jim Lee is really good. Jim Lee sells the J. Scott Campbell stock in this, and Jim Lee sells the Brett Booth stock in this. He had a lot of faith. Now, I will say, in long-term comic book history, either of these pickups, you know, they left comics, and Brett Booth is in and he's out, and he's not consistent enough. And J. Scott, you know, like, you becoming a cover artist does not make you a comic book artist. you're just a cover guy. You have to do the interiors. But yeah, we get some of the swimsuit action. There was some flack inside the Homage Studios, and people were busting Jim Lee's balls on how he drew dinosaurs based on some of his X-Men work. And everyone in the studio did like dinosaur pieces. And this is a lot of the stuff you hear. You saw this a lot in the Wildstorm blog. There's all these challenges that they would do at Wildstorm Productions to kind of one-up one another, like group shots and team shots and a lot of themes and really good stuff. And it kind of creates that level of competition in the studio. This is Jim Lee's finest contribution to the people that worked under him. He knew how to challenge it and to kind of like raise it up. So it's I think this is a halfway decent T-Rex. Not perfect, but it's fun to look at. You know, I think that burnout here looks a little, right? But I do like Fairchild. I don't know why. She's in the hammock, looking cool. We have some like feet issues here with grunge, and you know, like this hand doesn't look like a Jim Lee hand. Get more codename Strike Force. Mark Silvestri just wants this book to sell. You almost want to say Mark Silvestri is acting like he needs this book to sell. But we get Scott Clark, and Scott Clark's like, hey guys, you know, remember, we pumped Scott Clark's stock. Scott Clark was the real MVP at this time for Wildstorm Productions, because he came in with a level of work. Consistency does fall off, but we get some penciled and smudges, right? We get some pencil work. And he's like, I love drawing like this because I don't have to worry about the inker. And look, dude, look at the Fahrenheit here. Like, wouldn't you buy it? You would buy this book. You would buy this. Look at his Ripclaw. You would buy this book. Joe Chiodo, inked by Jim Lee. How amazing is that? And then we get some Mark Silvestri Cyberforce sketchbook stuff that we've already seen, right? Like, do we... Where's it at? Where's it at? Is it here too? Is it here too, everyone? Let's see. Oh my god, here it is. Oh jeez. Okay, so the Mark Silvestri sketchbook stuff is so suspect. We get some of that. Wells Portacio. So we have to remember, and look, another Joe Chiodo piece. Like, he's good, dude. Like, Joe Chiodo knows how to lay it down. I love the proportions of this girl, and I love her 50s Jetsons coffee machine, you know, with donuts. I don't know why. I just think that's cute. Yeah, Wells Portacio, though. So, Wells Portacio, his Instagram used to rock and roll. He did so many different, like, process drawings, different materials, alcohol markers, computer coloring. He later, remember, I think it might be Stormwatch Volume 3 or 4, he pencils, inks, and colors, like the first few issues of that. Brett Booth, again, Jim Lee. Brett Booth was the first artist I found during the Homage Studios talent search. His work is powerful and highly detailed. His sense of pacing and his dynamic fight scenes make him a definite superstar in the making. It's sad. You know, like, he is a superstar, but he never... Brett Booth is really, like, one of the top of these discoveries. And I mean, like, by consistency, that he still works in comics, but he never got over the hump and the attention that someone like J. Scott Campbell, Michael Turner, David Finch, really, like, the Top Cow side gets the adulation. And, you know, people go to J. Scott Campbell, but you have to cut that off. Again, we keep saying it at a certain point. Brett Booth is still rocking and rolling, and he does pieces now where he redraws a lot of the image covers. He's Demon Puppy on Twitter. It's worth checking out. But look at his characters, though. And you see some of these guys, or like guys, show up later in Wildcore and Backlash. How to break into comics. Okay, cool. But then look, we have Alice Garner, another talent search pickup that becomes J. Scott Campbell's inker. But we see how nice some of these lines are. These lines, like, look at the hair. Like, nice feathering for the hair. Really good stuff here. But yeah, separation of powers, almost honing in on what people are good at. That's a lot of what Wildstorm did. They bring in someone that they know is talented. They say, like, you really have to go into inking. They get into inking and they do some damage. I believe Garner went into full comic book production. He became, like, you know, he can color. He does a lot of stuff too. Again, but check out the early Weapon Zero here. Very similar to what we got in here in the tour book. Weapon Zero is such a cool, wild looking book. But guys, yeah, I mean, we have some of the, like, the locations, like some of these is like by Wells Portacio, right? But then, like, Wells has like 3 offices. It's really, the map really makes no sense. You know, and if you're an editor, Jeff, you did a crappy job with some of this info, because we needed more info for that intro. Because, you know, for the Wildstormers, we need to know who really founded Homage Studios. We still don't know.